Hello, I'm Marina Kim and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. On Monday, May 17th, the residents of Shymkent, Kalzine Tabylova organized a protest action in Astana, climbing a tower crane and demanding the infamous company Kazakhstan to pay back the money owed for delivered construction materials.
Driven by despair, a resident of Shymkent climbed a tall tower crane in Astana. The founders of the infamous company Kazakhstan owe her nearly $170,000 for undelivered cement. The woman said the firm is headed by the father of current prime minister, who promises to repay the debt since last year. The financial director promised to pay the money back. She should do it now, otherwise I will throw myself off the crane because I have nothing to lose. In the early morning, the woman climbed the crane tower at another famous Astana construction site, a part of the residential complex Nursai, inhabited mostly by Kazakh MPs. Abylova says that the buildings of ministers, parliament and government, where the son of her debtor Karim Masimov sits, are clearly seen from this location. Human rights activist Talas Sagimbayev, who provides legal support to investors of Masimov Sr., says a woman in this condition can actually jump.
She worked in Kazakhstan as a manager and borrowed money for Masimov Sr. from 11 businessmen to ship cement. Later, these people took away her house, truck and other property to pay off the debt.
The scandal erupted in December of the last year with a protest near the government building. Shymkent businessmen accused Masimov Sr. of not paying them debts, and the matter went to the court. After partially covering the amount, the prime minister's father filed a counterclaim against his opponents for libel. The court, however, turned away the appeal. Now another creditor of Kazhimkan Masimov's company decided to remind him of the outstanding sum. Rescuers, firefighters and ambulance doctors are on standby at the site. The woman said she will descend the crane only after some money will be returned to her, and a legal notice for the rest will be issued.
This was not the first similar protest in Kazakhstan, as the leader of the Union of Homeless Military Personnel, Daulet Jumabekov, did just that to express his attitude towards the corruption within the Defense Ministry. Ultimately, this led to the dismissal of the department head, while the housing issue of the officers began to be resolved. The Monday's crane situation had an unexpected development, with Astana's authorities calling a local imam to the scene, who unsuccessfully attempted to persuade the woman to think everything over and climb down. Meanwhile, the police chose another course of action and detained human rights activist Talas Sagimbayev. Representatives of the Yesil police department provide no explains for the detention of Talas Sagimbayev, while no one is allowed to enter the building. The head of the Astana branch of the Social Democratic Party, Azad, came to learn about Sagimbayev's fate, but was turned away as well, saying the oppositionist is busy writing explanatory letters. Meanwhile, the story of the tower protest is directly linked to Sagimbayev, as he represents the interests of Shymkent entrepreneurs, to whom Masimov Sr. owes money. Now Sagimbayev is in the police department, and it is unknown how long he will be kept there. Knowing well the habits of the Kazakh police, Astana residents express concerns about the fate of the human rights activist.
Police always act very rudely, even to ordinary people. I told him that I was as much as a leader as Tazmakambetov in the ruling Nuratan, and the police cannot behave in such way.
When arguments are no longer heard by officials, people are driven to desperate measures. Some march with banners calling onlookers to join them, while others are trying to fight alone. The methods might be different, but they often go beyond the narrow-minded understanding.
Last year, Almaty resident Anatoly Akhmetov cut off his finger in front of TV cameras to protest the judiciary tyranny. The next step will be self-immolation, as apparently there is no other ways to affect the officials.
This is like a war. The ordinary citizens of our country are not protected, and nobody pays attention to any of our problems. The authorities' lawlessness and abuse are widespread.
This is not the first case of a radical fight for the rights in Kazakhstan. After losing all hope for justice, people turn to various ways of public suicide. Psychologists say that any person can be driven to these extremes. In the heat of passion, people might do something they would never consider doing at other times. They are affected by the tunnel vision, a condition when a person sees only one way out of the situation, failing to realize anything else. In such moments, a person can be pushed over the line by virtually anything. Nowadays, the detonator is often the indifference and impenetrability of the system, hopelessness and despair in trying to find the truth. Even political motivation has long become secondary. If a person has a different set of values and a political struggle is important for him, it is likely that he might choose this course of actions. Everything depends on the individual scale of values. Kazakhstan is ranked third among the former Soviet Union countries in the number of suicides. It is difficult to say how many cases were caused by the failure of people to cope with the bureaucratic machine. Psychologists say that these already startling figures will only grow in the future.
A highway in Semey was blocked by residents of a local village for already the second time this year. People protest against not having electricity for several months, as all procedural appeals failed to produce any feasible results.
On Monday, almost 150 residents of the village Bobrovka blocked the highway to Semey, demanding to restore the supply of electricity in the settlement. 3 months ago, the local monopolist cut off the power to the entire area due to debts of individual defaulters. The sum amounted to $5,000 and 600 families were left in the dark. We appealed to the mayor, town prosecutor, financial police and the ruling party Nuratan. We have been waiting for a response for 2 months, but they never helped us. The protesters hoped to draw the attention of the local authorities, however, only district police reacted to their action. Desperately, people demanded to see the mayor of Semey. He, however, never showed up at the scene, and instead protesters had to settle for the secretary of the city administration. He said the social tension was artificially created by energy suppliers who cut off the electricity without any approvals.
Energy supply organization intentionally provokes the situation because instead of negotiating the problematic issues during working hours, they simply turn off the electricity and thus create the social tension.
After an hour of the talks, the administration representative reported that a letter was sent to Shigasenergo Trade in which the authorities guaranteed to pay off the debts of Bobrovka. Half an hour later, the electricity was restored in the settlement.
Meanwhile, the hunger strike on the territory of the unregistered party Alga was finished in Almaty on Monday. The protesters informed about this during a specially called press conference.
After 2 weeks of the hunger strike, the democratic community of Kazakhstan convinced the protesters to stop the action and choose more effective fight methods. Mikhail Siza from the party Alga and first secretary of the Communist Party Gazi Saldamzharov brought the protesters a letter asking to suspend the action.
We believe the continuation of the hunger strike is somewhat meaningless, as the authorities have not reacted in any way and people are already exhausted. While we have more important goals and activities ahead, we think people have already done what they had to do.
The hunger strike began May 1st and lasted for 14 days. The protesters have put forward 6 demands, the main of which was the resignation of President Nazarbayev. Letters with demands were sent to all state bodies and even the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE. However, no reaction followed.
If necessary, we can continue this at any time and with any number of people, together with representatives of other parties and public organizations.
Although the ranks of protesters have changed in 14 days, 4 main organizers saw the action to the end. Unfortunately, Yerbol Nurgaliyev and Jasaral Kuanyshalin had to be hospitalized. The latter was brought to the Central Clinical Hospital with gastric bleeding. Kuanyshalin is not allowed to move, although his doctor says the striker's condition is stable and he is slowly recovering.
At the moment, there are no signs of the continuous bleeding and the patient's condition is stable. I believe he could be prescribed ambulatory treatment within 4 days.
Hunger strike participants say they intend to continue opposing the authorities, but with more effective steps. Now they plan to join the bloc Narodovlastia, People's Rule, which already includes the Communist Party and the unregistered party Alga. Since the government does not react to the citizens' appeals, people will take matter in their own hands.